So, good afternoon, everyone. We are very happy to be here with you. It's an honor for me. I am Paz Velasco. I work in the European Union in headquarters. It's an honor for me to be here with you, to be able to moderate the last panel of today, where we would like to discuss about policies and approaches for gender equality, inclusive workplaces with all of you. We have four main objectives that we would like to achieve and to discuss with you today during this panel. First of all is, of course, the need to raise awareness about the impact of gender-based violence in the economic development and in the private sector development, and of course in women economic empowerment. Gender-based violence is not only a violation of human rights, but it's also a barrier to economic development and to growth. But also, of course, we need evidence, and this is something that we have been discussing in previous, for example, in the previous panel of care economy, the relevance of data collection. Also, in the previous session that we had on data analysis, evidence is key to be able to inform, to well inform the formulation and implementation of policies. But also, again, this has been previously discussed in previous panels. Thank you. The need to have a collective approach to address gender equality in the workplace. It's not only a responsibility of the employer, or the employees, or the private sector, or the public sector. It's a joint responsibility of all of us together to work on this. And finally, there is also a need to increase capacity building and training on the understanding the relevance of addressing gender equality in the workplace. This is important to be able to formulate better policies and to be able to implement those policies in an efficient and impactful way. So thank you for bearing with us today in this last panel. We will make it very interactive. So as well as you are telling me that I need to speak closer to the micro, please don't hesitate to participate, to ask questions, and to bring your experiences and your lessons learned to put in place all together and take some good conclusions of this panel today.
Thank you, Pat. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Irene Dankwa. I'm a business reform advisor at the ICR facility, and I'll be co-moderating with Pat today. So today's session, we have two panel sessions, and then we have two Q&A sessions. So we have a first panel. After the first panel, then there will be a Q&A session. If the Q&A session is more of a peer learning, where we want to hear from you, the work you've been doing in your country, and then we'll move to the second panel, and then after that, we'll have another Q&A session. So for this first panel, we'll be joined by Marina Elefante, who is a private sector development specialist of the World Bank's Women, Business and the Law Unit, where she leads research on violence against women. Can we give her a hand of applause as she joins us on stage? Also joining us for this first panel is Yolanda Gibb. Yolanda is an experienced gender expert working to increase women's economic empowerment through entrepreneurship and financial inclusion. Yolanda was the lead consultant for the ICR Facility Technical Assistance to the Employers Consultative Association of Malawi on gender inclusive workplace. Can we put our hands together as we welcome Yolanda? She joins us. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Yolanda, Marina, for joining us today. My first question will be to Marina. So I was saying that one of the main objectives of this panel discussion today is to understand, to realize, to raise awareness about the impact of gender-based violence in private sector development and women economic empowerment. How do you see this is impacting?
Thank you very much, Pat. And thank you, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here again on the stage. First, to answer that question, I think first a necessary premise that gender-based violence has an important impact on the participation of women in the economy and the development of the private sector because it is pervasive. We have data showing that 1 in 3 women have experienced some form of gender-based violence throughout their lives, and oftentimes at the hand of an intimate partner. But what I would like to talk about today is the economic impact of gender-based violence, which is profound and it is far-reaching because it has cascading effects, not just on the individuals themselves, but on their families, on the communities, on businesses, and on the economy overall. So just to make a few examples of the costs that are related to gender-based violence. First of all, healthcare costs, which are not only weight on the individual whose financial resources are reduced, but also on the healthcare system. Secondly, women who are experiencing gender-based violence experience also reduced participation in the workforce. They may be forced to leave their jobs or be absent from work. This reduces their economic output. When they are able to go to work, their productivity is reduced because of the extreme physical and psychological trauma that they have experienced. All of this translates into reduced earnings for these women. But all of this translates also into costs for businesses. Businesses who experience gender-based violence among their employees face higher turnover rates, loss of skilled workforce, potential legal liabilities, and also reputational costs. And again, what does this translate into? Deterred investments. Investors may fear that the prevalence of gender-based violence in an area and in a business may impact the business operation, the reputation of the business, and all of this is in addition to other costs like justice costs, legal enforcement, the services that are needed for survivors to support them, not to mention the intergenerational effects that this touch, for example, children of survivors of violence, their participation and performance in school, their mental health, all of this impacts their future economic prospects. And so at the World Bank Women, Business and the Law, which is the project where I work, where we measure the laws that affect the participation of women in the economy, we have introduced this year for the first time research on safety, measuring the laws and the policies that affect, that address 4 forms of gender-based violence. And what we find, we score countries based on how conducive their legal environment is to the participation of women in the economy. And when it comes to gender-based violence in this region, the ACP countries, the average score is 26. So that means that barely a quarter of the laws that would be needed to address these forms of violence are in place. And because we're speaking of safe workspaces, when it comes to sexual harassment, out of the 74 countries we have data for, only 47 have laws on sexual harassment in employment. So this helped us understand how gender-based violence had a huge impact on the participation of women in the global workforce, and it contributes to a general finding that the gender gap in the participation of women in the economy is massive and much larger than we previously had estimated.
Thank you. Yolanda, I'll just come to you. Marina just talked about estimation of the cost on the economic impacts on ACP country. Do we have data? Is there data that is able to tell us that this is the economic impact on when we talk about gender-based violence at the workplace in ACP countries, or how are organizations and countries able to put out that data to quantify, to measure that economic impact? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, I mean, a lot of what Marina has already said, I won't repeat. I think the only thing that I've come across is an estimation, which I think came from the UN, saying that it was between 0.9 and 1.3, 1.5% of GDP. And that was ascribed to the cost of gender-based violence. Now, I'd have like two reflections on that. And one is from some of the work that I've done in different countries. One thing is how gender-based violence is defined. And I've seen that there are different countries, they define it differently, and maybe the Gender Act defines it in one way, and other people are defining it in different ways, some more loosely than others, some make it very specific, and I think that has a big impact on how we conceptualize it. I think also related to that is often there is quite a strong emphasis on physical violence. And we need to remember, that there's emotional, psychological violence. Those things may not, leave actual bodily marks, but they're just as bad and they have a very sort of long-term effect. And that's why I appreciate what you said, Marina, that it goes generational when you suddenly discover that has had an impact on your children and then what they do and how they pass it on to their children. So it can have some very insidious effects that arguably are really difficult to quantify. And then there's the compound cost, because if a woman is afraid to go after certain opportunities, if she's afraid to take up maybe a job, she's afraid to set up in business, either because she fears for violence or because her experiences have made her much less willing to try things because she's had so many bad experiences. So it's not necessarily a direct you must not, but it might just be that things have been so bad in my experience that I just don't want to stick my head above the parapet and do something. So, when you say how do we define the costs, there's so much in there that is not to be captured by the statistics. And then I think there's also the opportunity cost, if I could maybe finish with that. As diversity in businesses is already seen to make businesses more creative, it increases the productivity, it increases the motivation, the commitment in companies, the atmosphere of working in a place that is a good place to work. So I think, again, there are a lot of opportunity costs that are missed. And so I think however we define it and however we maybe measure it, it's bigger than that, and that's something worth bringing in mind.
Thank you. So the cost is bigger than we can even imagine. Thank you. I'll come to you, Marina. You have been gathering data for the women business and the law. And how are you seeing countries using evidence-based data in formulating policies or implementing policies to tackle gender-based violence at the workplace? How are countries using it? The countries who are using it, are they becoming successful? And what is the place for evidence-based data when it comes to gender-based violence at the workplace? Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much. Yes, of course, this is what we do. We're in the business of producing data, and so we value the importance of data for effective policy making for a number of reasons. First of all, data on gender-based violence can help us understand the scope, so the prevalence, and therefore to advocate for reforms. It's a powerful tool to advocate for reforms addressing gender-based violence. Data can help us understand gaps in the legal frameworks, and so where those reforms are needed, but also to understand good practices, so examples, models that have worked in other countries. So all of this can inform effective policy making. But the importance of data doesn't end there. Even when these laws are in place, data can help understand and track the effectiveness of these measures, and so promote continuous improvement. It can help with accountability of governments to measure their progress toward meeting some international standards. This is what we do with the Sustainable Development Goals and the indicators that help track progress toward meeting these standards. And so what we see in our research, the examples of policies and laws that are successful and successfully tackling gender-based violence at the workplace. So I would like to focus on sexual harassment, is that the successful laws tend to have the same characteristics. And so one is, and what Yolanda was mentioning, clear definitions is number one, which is not a given. And it is extremely important because sexual harassment is a wide range of behaviors, and it's not necessarily physical. It can be verbal, it can be advances. And so it is important to typify in the law all these behaviors if you are able to prosecute this in a court of law. Second element is accountability for perpetrators, and for that, by that I mean criminal penalties, or also civil remedies for the victims to receive compensation or restitution and other forms of civil compensation. Number three, reporting mechanisms that are clear, with clear procedures that allow victims to report grievances, and so with disciplinary actions. But all of this in the law is pointless if it's not accompanied by implementing mechanisms. And so we need also support to the employers with guidelines on how to address this issue. Procedures. This could be special courts or entities that can receive complaints, but also fast-track procedures to sort of give priority to this kind of cases, or the reversal of the burden of proof is another important tool. Once probable cause is established, it's not the victim who has to prove sexual harassment, but it falls on the defendant. And so when it comes on the other side to unsuccessful policies, what we don't like to see are those laws that barely leave it to the employer to address. And so you can see provisions saying the employer shall take all necessary measures to address sexual harassment without mentioning what these measures could be or any form of accountability. Or another example, and then I'll conclude, are policies that, or laws that, for example, only allow the victim to leave employment without losing her termination benefits, and that's the only tool available. So ideally, we would like repercussions on the job of the perpetrator and not the job of the victim. But I can give you an example of a good policy, and that is the law of Malawi. The Gender Equality Act provides that employers must ensure that all victims of sexual harassment are able to file a grievance, but with disciplinary actions. But there are also criminal penalties, and there are also civil remedies. And what's important in the law is a provision that states that a victim does not need to exhaust all the internal measures first before criminal procedures may commence or civil procedures may be instituted. So this is a good example providing for different options for this issue.
Thank you very much, Marina. Now, jumping a bit into Yolanda's view, which are, those policies and tools? We have heard now from Marina the example of the Malawi law, also how the elements that are relevant in a law to be successful in addressing gender-based violence. But do you have other examples of successful or unsuccessful policies and tools that have been put in place? And also maybe jumping a bit into the relevance of data collection, how we can use data collection to better inform policy formulation and implementation, as well as capacity building for a better implementation.
Thank you. I mean, I think maybe to complement a little bit what Marina has said, and looking at the kind of the policies and how they and laws and how they then go down into the companies. Yeah, I think often, even in medium to large companies, there's not necessarily somebody in the company that really understands the ins and outs of all of this. So the law is there, but to what extent, is it really clear inside the companies, and what sort of help do businesses need in order to be able to deal with it? I think the other thing is chronic underreporting, that people don't report it for whatever reasons, because they fear repercussions, because they fear they might lose their job, because they feel they'll be harassed again by the perpetrator. So there's really chronic underreporting, and that's also there's not much say reporting by witnesses, because sometimes what can also happen is that there are witnesses who will then recognize what's going on and try to take measures. So, and Marina said earlier, like getting from the laws to implementation, and then getting from implementation of the laws to making it work in the companies. So I think that's a really important thing, and there's a need for help there. For the data, I mean, starting with what Marina said, knowing means accountability. I mean, if you know what's going on, you can be accountable. And I'm thinking both data at national level and within the companies, because that sort of pushes up. But I think there's a lot of uncertainty, perhaps, about what to measure and how to measure it. And this is a very sensitive subject, and so you may just get people not responding if you try to do surveys and other things. You're only able to look at reporting, so you can see maybe differences in reporting, which doesn't necessarily mean an increase in cases. It might just mean an increase in people reporting it, because the environment has gotten a little bit, clearer. So, I mean, again, it's a tough area, I think, to get a lot of data from. I think it's really important to contextualize what's going on, to look at statistics, but also to look at qualitative information, to try and understand, what's going on, why is it happening? Because although, the quant gives you how big is the problem, but the qualitative information can tell us why is it happening, how is it happening, and maybe what levers can we push to make it better. So I think that's really, really important to try and make sense of it, because it is a very complex issue. Maybe, the last is, again, like statistics are lag indicators often. They come after the effect. So you're developing your statistics and you're seeing the evolution. But can we develop any lead indicators? Are there any signs that we can capture beforehand? I mean, I don't know the answer to that, but I feel like if there are signals that you can capture before things escalate and use those sorts of things, that would help us get a bigger picture. And might complement the existing data that we already have.
Thank you very much, Yolanda. I would be interested now to know a bit from the audience, if you are aware of certain policies that are being implemented in your countries that tackle gender-based violence at the workplace, or do you think that these policies create more gender equality? I know that Gloria wanted to take the floor. Yes, please. So, please, Gloria.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you to the panelists for a great presentation. My name is Gloria. I'm here. I represent ICAS Business Council. ICAS stands for Central Africa, but I'm Rwandan. Yes, I wanted to contribute to what has been shared. It's the experience of Rwanda, whereby there's been so much of awareness on gender equality. And we have a number of private companies that have been implementing the gender equality within the operations. Myself, who speak to you, I own a business as well, and I've been following it. But there's a story I would like to share with you of a local company that is into the garment industry. It's a company called Pink Mango, and they came up with an initiative whereby they called it Pink Ubuntu. So it's an initiative to improve the lives of the employees of the factory. And they have around 80% of women in the factory. And within those women, 75% are less than 25 years. But most of them are mothers. And the initiative was to create a daycare for the children of the staff. And they came up with that initiative with their own funds. And what they did is to receive children from 6 months to 5 months. So the company has availed a certain fund to have the daycare operating on a daily basis that welcome the women, the children that are in different ages. And for example, in that daycare, they even have a nursery. So the children are not only being taken care of, but they are even educated. And the most of the staff, they even receive balanced meals at work, just for them to be healthy. And another thing is that there's been a lot of awareness that companies should provide sanitary pads for the women within the workplace. So the story of Pink Ubuntu, it's a story that has been I would say inspiring many people, but again we could see that it's possible. And how do they raise funds? They don't receive any grants, they keep on doing themselves. So the sales that they make, they only allocate 1% of the sales to the daycare. And it's a daycare that has trained staff. They don't take domestic people that are not educated. They take people that are really educated at how they should take care of children. So if a private company has been able to do it, it's possible. But again, we've seen a growth of companies doing their own way by making sure that the percentage of women is high. And even the sensitization that there should be respect between men and women. In my company, I do so. I make sure that women are really protected. I'm a business owner, and I tend to deal with men. There are cases whereby we find we have work where it's male dominated, but and being the youngest, because some of them are older than me, but we were able at least to make sure that the respect is being followed. And another thing which I just want to share is that even financial institutions these last few months, they've been able to set up daycare in their workplaces just for the mothers to feel safe, but even to be able to be connected to the children more often. So that's the experience I wanted to share of Rwanda, of what we've been able to do. But the sensitization is there very often. And we have one of the agency that is called Gender Monitoring Office that promotes the gender equality, not only to the public, but even to the private sector. So they are always sensitization on all levels. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gloria.
Thank you. I don't know, we can take one or two questions before we go to the next panel. So if anyone has a question for this panel, then we invite the second panel. Or contribution examples from your country that you want to share.
Okay. Thank you for the very interesting discussions. I think for me, I'm thinking in terms of some of the small and medium-sized enterprises and the costs of putting in place the policies, the processes that can enable a gender-responsive workplace. Is there any way or any frameworks for incentivizing the small and medium-scale enterprises to take on more gender-responsive practices? Maybe an accreditation system or something that they can work towards, which really gives them that recognition that they've put in place the right structures, they have the right policies and processes, and that can be something that also earns them more business. Because for enterprises, they want to see return on investment, and if they don't, they can't quantify the return on that investment, then it becomes a little bit hard to incentivize them to do that. So any ideas would be welcome.
We can take the second question, then we come to the panel.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Namakau Kaingu, founder Women in Mining in Africa and Global. On gender-based violence, I think in the mining sector, first of all, at country level, I think we have managed to do gender mainstreaming. But the problem that we have, I think, is because of the fact that...
Excuse me, if you can speak closer to the
mic.
Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah, the fact that we have men and women, and historically, the mining sector has been male-dominated. And women came in because of the ability to be able to reduce, I think, first of all, household poverty. Now, we are working in the mining sector. I'm one of the first women to get into mining. And I made sure that I try to break all the barriers in the mining sector. That is why there was the UN, the ILO convention of, I think, number 47, if I'm right, did not allow women to go underground. But I made sure I went underground 4 kilometers in Johannesburg, number 10 gold mine, just to break the barrier. Women are not allowed to work in the mining. Women cannot use explosives. I made sure I became one of the first women to get a blasting license. I'd be able to drill and blast on my own so that I can teach the other women. Now, the problem that we are having, because women have been allowed to go in the sector, gender-based violence now in the sector is one. The male participants who feel that they are the owners of the mining industry have been, taking away mining licenses from women without authority, but just because they are men. And because women cannot fight with men. And when they go to the authorities to go and claim their licenses, they are told all different stories. So the women, it's a case that we are following. The women are left like that. For example, in the emerald mining area in Zambia, a lot of women went there before the men. But what has happened is that somehow the men felt, because they are strong and macho, they've grabbed the mines from the women. So we are working to do that. The other issue is on the pricing also of the minerals. Because it's a woman who is selling, the price will start from maybe $0.25. Right now we have the issue of the critical minerals. There's a scramble for critical minerals. And what it is that a mineral like beryllium, which on the international market is sold at between $800 and $1,000 per kg. In Malawi, Zambia, Zimbabwe, whatever, in Zambia they're starting at 5 kwacha, which is like $0.25 per kg. But international market is $875 to $1,000 per kg. Now, what do the women do? So they are ripped apart and they are working so hard. That is on pricing. Again, on acquisition of licenses. Again, it's a problem, it's a gender issue. Women are supposed to do what the men want them to do, vis-a-vis whatever they want to do for them to get their license.
So I guess the question here will be to the panel will be on how we tackle gender-based violence in male-dominated sectors. So
yes.
So
I think I leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll take the Is there a last question? Yes, we'll take the last question. Just 30 seconds, and then we go to the panel. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Elizabeth Kemich. I work with the Association of Women Lawyers in Uganda, FIDA, Uganda, and I just wanted to share a bit of experience from my country responding to what my sister, who's seated right there, asked about. How do we influence small SMEs and SMEs, MSMEs and the other ones, the small ones, to sort of take up this whole thing that we keep talking about sexual harassment and other forms of violence in the place of work. And I just wanted to update that in Uganda we did, I think we're the second country in Africa that does have a national action plan on business and human rights. And what that national action plan does is that it tries to mirror the things that are in the draft UN binding treaty on business and human rights. And what that whole body seeks to do is to ensure that businesses are doing work in a more respectable way, that businesses are able to do business but also follow human rights standard of decent work and a sort of protection of any other forms of violence and vulnerabilities that workers face. And when we did have that policy passed in Uganda, as an institution, we figured that it would be difficult for a restaurant that employs 10 girls to be able to get what this national action plan looks like, as what a sexual harassment policy, right, would look like. So what did we do? As an institution, we sat and we picked out excerpts from the national action plan. So we really call it like a scorecard of sorts that we are now developing to share with the businesses. What we did before is to reach out to 10 of them, right, that accepted and said, you know what, let's try this thing and see. And what that guideline or scorecard does is sort of pick the important, the cores, right, about sexual harassment, the procedures, where you can call, why it's important. But before we got here, we had to do sessions with these businesses because they need to make business sense of what you're telling them. So if it doesn't make business sense, I've seen that a lot of private sector will rarely come through on that front. For as long as they're able to make profit, it doesn't matter if it is done in a manner that does not respect rights of the workers, as long as profits are being made. So what we did is that we made a business sense to these small businesses, that it matters that you have this certificate that shows that you care, right? Even if you may not care, you know, you don't know what they're doing, but this scorecard which they can use to tick that we are 10 here, that there is a semblance of order in case I feel I'm harassed, in case I'm not paid, in case I'm failing to get a contract from my employer but I continue working, that these are sort of things that you will tick off for you to know that your business is doing the right thing. Now you might wonder, how do we then hold them accountable? Is that the guideline also gives what we will do, and we did this in collaboration with ministry. We're doing this in collaboration with Ministry of Gender, that is in charge of labor, and then the CSOs. And the intention of working with the government is that then the government has more power over private sector compared to civil society, to be able to hold them accountable on those particular scorecards that they are developing. So I just thought I'd share that example as something that can be done to interest businesses.
Thank you. I think that answers our sister's question. On the question on male-dominated, our second panel, there is a good example from our second panel, so that will also answer this. I'll hand over to Paz to introduce the second panel. Thank you.
Thank you. So I would like to invite our colleagues, Annalisa Chabula. Annalisa is the president of the Employers Consultative Association of Malawi, ECAM. Thank you. Anne is also a board member of the Workers' Compensation Trust Fund and Technical Educational Vocational Entrepreneurial Authority of Malawi, and she's a certified ILO policy brief writer with an MBA and an advanced diploma in personal management and public relations. Thank you, Annalisa. Also, I would like to invite Yvonne Kennedy, who is the executive director of the PNG Business Coalition for Women, that she joined in 2018 and has also an MBA on international development and an MBA. And finally, I would like to introduce also to Princess St. Clair. Hi, Princess, sorry, I didn't see you. Princess is the Director of Organizational Development at the Jamaica Custom Union. and she's a member of the largest network group of OD professionals in the English-speaking Caribbean. So welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for joining us. I think the first panel we did see the impact of GBV on the economies of ACP countries, and in fact all economies. So we want to know the role of both the private sector and the public sector. We know that you are all from private sector organizations. I'll come to you first, Anne. Recently, just last year, you did work on gender audits in the workplace in Malawi. We work with you on the ICR facility. So that report, gender audits in the workplace, is on the ICR facility website. If you go on the ICR facility website, you'll find the gender audit. So if you're looking at how to conduct a gender audit, you'll find that on our website. So we want you to tell us more on how ECAM, if you work with the public sector in tackling gender-based violence in the workplace. Thank you.
Good afternoon to you all. As said, I am Anne Chafula. I am the president of Employers Consultative Association of Malawi, and in short, we call it ECAM. ECAM is employer representative body representing all employers in Malawi, and our mandate is to protect, promote, and guide the interests of employers in labor, employment, and socio-economic issues. ECAM was established in 1963, and all along it was a male-dominated area until some 3 years ago. That's when we chose a female leadership. So it's me and my vice president. We are all females. And I can testify today that we've seen a lot of growth in ECAM ever since we took office. The time that we were coming in, it was almost bankrupt. But now ECAM is financially sound and doing very well, meaning that as women, we can do it. So when we came into ECAM, we noted that the gender equality was not on the business agenda. Because you can understand from our background that we are coming from a male-dominated area. That's why they didn't even prioritize gender equality. So immediately we came into office. That was one of our priority areas. We said we want to tackle gender equality. And when the opportunity came that we could work with ICR and British Council, we engaged them to do a gender audit for us. So when they did the gender audit, the aim of the gender audit was to focus on violence, harassment, and equality in the world of work. We wanted an evidence-based, because what we wanted is we wanted to inform our employers what was on the ground. And we didn't want to inform them without evidence. That's why we conducted that gender audit. So when the gender audit was done, we were able to establish that we really had a problem at hand, and it was an issue that needed urgent attention. And it was really a milestone in the life of ECAM that we were able to establish those issues. Yeah, so as I said, we were able to prioritize, and we did the gender audit. And then the results that we got from the survey, they not only gave us the situation and analysis regarding the situation of gender-based issues in the workplace, but also provided us with opportunities to review and update our policies, at the same time ensure that Malawi moves along with the rest of the world on issues of violence and harassment and gender equality. So after we got the report, what did we do as ECAM? We organized a sensitization meeting where we invited the CEOs and our board members, because we believed that in order for us to make inroads, we needed the buy-in of the top executives. So we called them to a breakfast meeting where we gave them the report of the gender audit, and we also sensitized them on the Gender Equality Act of Malawi and Section 190 of the ILO. So after that sensitization meeting, they clearly saw that we had an issue at hand, and it was an issue that we needed to address immediately. And we were able to have them sign a letter of commitment that going forward, they would assist us in ensuring that gender equality issues are addressed in their workplaces. The other initiative that we did was we have an Employer of the Year award, which we conduct every year. So of course, we award companies based on different categories. We have a number of categories like largest employer, best employer. We have those that are tackling child labor. We also have a section on gender equality. And we ensure on that section of gender equality, when assessing, we want to be sure that we have, in those companies, we have women in decision-making positions, even the ratio between men and women. We also ensure that even paternity leave, maternity leave, such things are handled under gender equality section. So once we assess the companies, we award the company that has done very well in that category. And we have a success record because the first year we had 10 companies participating in that category. But in the next year, that was after the sensitization meeting with the CEOs, we saw that the number increased, it doubled from 10 to 20, meaning that the CEOs had passed the message that we had called them, even the sensitization that we had done. So after that, those companies are awarded on Labor Day, that's before the president. So the president awards such companies. So it's a motivation to companies to do well in that area because they know that at the end of the day, they will be awarded by the president. Thank you.
Thank you. And so there was a systematic approach. Thank you. So I think the first panel we talked about evidence. So we have seen how evidence was gathered and has been used in changing and on making changes in the workplace. Thank you. And I'll come to you, Yvonne. I know that in the coalition was sort of set up in response to some of these issues and in response to the private sector trying to work more in gender-based violence. So can you tell us more about the work that you did with the coalition? Thank you.
So thank you. I just want to introduce where I'm from. So I'm from Papua New Guinea because I was talking to a lot of people and they weren't sure where we were. So just in reference, our country is just above Australia in the Pacific. And 10 years ago, the private sector formed a coalition, and it was the Manufacturing Council, the Chambers of Commerce, mining and petroleum, but also big businesses within Papua New Guinea, as they saw that not only the recruitment of women, but retention of women in the formal sector was quite low. So they formed us to respond in a way where we could work on barriers that were presented for women in the formal sector, and also create opportunities. But one of those barriers, as you've mentioned, is gender-based violence. And specifically, we work with companies around sexual harassment policies and how to implement those policies within the workplace. We also do gender safety audits on male-dominated work sites. So we do go into extractives as well. And we do family and sexual violence policy. So some of you will know that as domestic violence. And we call that family and sexual violence in Papua New Guinea. And we work with companies to implement that policy. And similar to what this lady was saying in regards to, we had to get buy-in from the private sector. And so to do that, we had to do research. So we had to understand, first of all, what the issues were, and they're significant in Papua New Guinea. So we heard the statistic of 1 in 3 globally. In Papua New Guinea, it's 2 in 3. And so we understood that it was significant. We understood that it also impacted businesses via cost to the company. So you do have to talk in that language that companies will respond to. So The cost, we talked about that it was a workplace health and safety issue. And what was the buy-in for them? So we needed to also understand, if you did do this policy work, how was it going to support your business? So we had to also give them evidence around that. So we did do a lot of work with CEOs and companies, and we've actually implemented that policy within over 40 companies throughout Papua New Guinea. But it's taken some time. So we're 10 years old as an organization. And so we were formed in 2014. In 2015, we had legislation around the Family and Sexual Violence Act. So relatively new to have that policy. We embedded that in our company policy, and that's what we try and implement within organizations. But we train key people, such as HR, to implement that policy within the workplace.
I think we are seeing a common where we are seeing evidence, research, we are seeing partnership, collaboration. So it's not enough to say this is the policy. It's about working with the employers to make it work. I mean, we have a fantastic example. We earlier on, there was a question on male-dominated areas. How do we ensure gender equality and reduce gender-based violence? And with me here, we have Princess, who from Jamaica, who has done a fantastic work in the customs agency. We know the customs agency are male-dominated, but we are getting some interesting statistics from Jamaica. Over 60% of the employees there are female. So we want to hear how you did that. Thank you.
Okay, colleagues, good evening or good afternoon. The Jamaican experience is pretty unique, as you highlighted. The Jamaica Customs Agency predominantly has 68% female across all levels. When you look at management and supervisory levels, we are at 64% female dominated. However, we understand and appreciate that it's a balanced perspective and the needs of both our men and our women need to be met. The national imperative came in Jamaica where we had a national policy on gender equality that came out in 2011, and they started sensitization across ministries, departments, and agencies. My agency was a part of that pilot of the project, and we were trained through UN Women in how to conduct the assessment and how to formulate the policies. And we were also asked by the World Customs Organization to do an assessment through their gender equality and assessment tool that highlighted the sex disaggregated data that pointed that we had more women than men. And so we thought, in management, how could we make sure that all the needs were being met in this space? So we also identified on a very personal level that on 1,500 employees on staff that work across 54 locations and pretty much 24 hours, there would be relationships being formed. And we also felt that our core values, being accountable, professional, integrity, transparent persons, we had to find a way to manage these relationships because we identified that some persons were married, some persons had informal relationships, and some persons were also co-parenting. So we created quite a few policies to support the environment. So we had our gender-based violence policy, and that was supported by the diversity and equality policy. Also, we had pulled out the sexual harassment policy because the country itself in 2021 had passed a policy on sexual harassment that mandates all entities, whether private or public, to have that in place. And we also had the disclosure policy that talk about the type of relationships that were in the space, because we didn't want a case where someone could say they were having a sexual harassment when it is that they were actually in a relationship with the persons. So we had a cross-cutting working group that came up, and we had the focus group discussions, and the staff consented and they agreed that it would be good to have these policies in place. We drafted, we followed up with the questionnaires and other consultative approach, and we also had these policies being vetted across other entities within the government space itself, and we had them enacted and they're actually approved and published, signed by our CEO, and even to support other customs organizations, they were shared with the World Customs Organization. Those are accessible on their space. Okay, so when we did all of that, we also knew to maintain a favorable environment, it had to become a part of our onboarding process, where we have the conversation with new recruits about how it is we conduct ourselves and how it is that we want persons to behave in the space, and that is for everyone, whether you're permanent, temporary, even contracted to the organization. You're made aware of these requirements and how it is that you must conduct yourself. Okay, so we have also put in place a reporting mechanism where persons can report if they've had any form of sexual harassment or exposure to gender-based violence, we identify bullying, and those required other areas, the incest and the other areas on the GBV as not non-tolerant. We have no tolerance for these in our spaces. So from time to time, we'll conduct the questionnaires to gauge the space to ensure that persons are being kept aware and that the reports are coming in. And yes, we do have persons reporting. And from the reports that we do gather, we have decided for some of our women, we have offered them capacity development courses, even to say self-defense courses, because at the borders, women working late hours in the night, they come up in the pairs, and we've had instances where persons on the vessels, men, try to touch women, and that's unwanted, unwelcome. So we try to ensure that they know how to respond and how to care for themselves in such instances. And we keep going, keeping the conversation with other areas of government and possibly IDPs where we can have enforcement and support to ensure that the capacity is there to respond. Also, we do have an employee assistance program that offers funding for staff and their families. So if you have been exposed to gender-based violence and you need counseling, you can have that for yourself and for your immediate family. That extends to spouses, parents, and children. And we actually invest and we budget for that. So that's a part of the gender side of our budgeting, that we make sure that funds are there to respond to these needs if they do come along.
Thank you very much. It's very interesting to hear about your experiences in your 3 different countries, covering the 3 regions that we are here covering, ACP regions. The work that you have done from your organizations to make sure to improve gender equality, to raise awareness on the role of the importance of addressing gender-based violence. But I don't know if you would have any kind of inspiring example of how from your organization one of the members have benefited and had put in place this public-private dialogue and some collective approach towards gender-based violence that can inspire us more than you have already done with the work that you are doing from your organization. I mean, yes, some maybe concrete example.
Yes, I'll talk about we have a public-private partnership in Papua New Guinea that is called BELICI PNG. So in Papua New Guinea, there's over 800 languages. So common languages are English or Tok Pisin, which is Tok Pidgin. So in Tok Pidgin, Bel means stomach and Isi means calm, so calm stomach. So that's just representative of what we're trying to create. So the public-private partnership was created not long after we were also created a bank in Papua New Guinea called Bank of South Pacific, wanted to create a safe house for their employees. So they approached my organization to understand how they could create a safe house for themselves. And my chairperson at the time was very influential and convinced them to talk to other businesses and other investors in terms of how they could potentially open this safe house to other private sector companies. So that began the discussions in 2016, and BELICI PNG was opened in 2018. And what it is the private sector has given in-kind buildings for a safe house, in-kind buildings for a case management centre. They also pay subscription so that they can have their employees have safe accommodation if they're going through domestic violence. We, as a partner, will go into those companies who have subscribed and support them to implement the family and sexual violence policy so they can recognise what family and sexual violence is, how to respond appropriately and in line with their policy, and where to refer to in the community. The other partner is a civil society organisation, Family PNG, that operates the case management centre in their safe house. And because we have said public, we do definitely want to work with the government of Papua New Guinea. So we work with NCDC, which is the National Capital District, and we support them to strengthen their systems around policing so that there is accountability for violence. Also, in terms of more safe houses, not just BELICI PNGs, having right resources to support survivors, and also our medical centres. So we know that anyone going through violence has a whole host of concerns that they'll be going through. So making sure that also our health centres are well resourced to respond to this issue. It's a work in progress, but we do actually have a lot of evidence around it. So we did research at the beginning of the project, and we just completed research last year around it. So what we have found is that there is greater employee well-being in those companies that are participating. We've actually also identified that the cost of those businesses is reduced, and there's less days lost per employee due to family and sexual violence, and attitudes are changing. So that is important. So there's a less acceptance of family and sexual violence, and that's what we want to see. So for us, we are seeing, it's baby steps for Papua New Guinea, but we're getting the evidence, and we think that's important as well.
For us in Jamaica Customs, we identified that one of the ways that we could respond to support staff was to offer flexible work arrangements, and we have put that policy in place where if persons, are having trauma and they can't come in the space, then they can put the arrangements in place where they can work remotely, as well as we have pulled 30 of our staff internally that have been trained as first responders. So they're like a peer-to-peer support network that persons can have first level counseling before we call in the experts outside through the EPA program. As well as we partner with the Jamaica Defense Force and the Bureau of Gender Affairs that offers a very robust conversation across our communities locally in Jamaica, where we're now talking about the domestic violence, the impact, and they have set up some centers. So if persons need to relocate, we can have support to get them out if they have to be taken out, and if they need to be in a safer space, we help them to relocate.
Yeah, for us, we have seen, I'll give you an example of our member, JTI Tobacco. What they have done is they've set up a toll-free line where members of staff can report any sexual harassment. And they've even set aside a budget for gender-based initiatives, activities to ensure that all staff are trained, and then there's a reporting mechanism, and if somebody is affected, they've even engaged a therapist whom the member of staff can call confidentially and then get support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very inspiring. Yolanda, now coming back to you, which key future trends do you foresee as pivotal to push forward women economic empowerment?
Trends. Part of this might be wishful thinking, but I do see the seeds, and I think it comes out nicely from some of the examples that we've already seen. I think there is an increasing recognition of how complex this subject is, and also that there are levels of intersectionality in there. So women might be prejudiced for a number of reasons, and gender-based violence is one of those. I think something that's come up over today in a number of different sessions that I've been in as well is the whole idea about sociocultural norms and power dynamics. And again, another issue that you really need to understand that. And I think what that tells me is it's everyone's responsibility, all of us. And if we don't take responsibility, then it's never going to change. I suppose one of the other things I've seen in terms of policies is unintended consequences. And sort of, not maybe to go into sort of examples at this point because that might take too long, but quite often you will put something in place and then that will create unintended consequences. And I would like to maybe link that to the question about SMEs, because often when you legislate and you say that the private sector must have at least 50% balance or 60-40% balance or something like that. For an SME with 5 people, that's really hard to deal with. So you need to consider how well an SME can actually respond. I think also, working with ECAM and the research that we did, there was a difference between policies and practices. So we spoke to a lot of small, medium-sized companies with, most under 150, but mostly with probably less, around 50 employees. And what was clear is they didn't have written policies, but they had practices. And I really like the idea of the scorecard. I think that's a really interesting way to do it. Let's look at the practices, what's going on, and maybe for the SMEs, it's more about the practices, the principles that they're putting in place. I think the last thing would be to look at the short term and the long term, because the norms, the power dynamics, all of that will take a very long time. But then there's the short term, some of the initiatives that we've been hearing about, things that are needed now, things that make it a little bit better. And so an idea that, keep your eye on both the immediate and the long term.
Thank you very much, Yolanda. Coming back to the short term, Marina, which will be, in your opinions, the key actions that we should be looking out for in the coming years to ensure we are promoting women economic empowerment, we are addressing gender-based violence and addressing gender-specific barriers in the workplace?
Yes. When talking about safe workspaces, we tend to focus our attention on sexual harassment in employment. But we need to keep in mind that women can be harassed not just at the workplace, and those forms of violence that happen even before that can affect their participation in the economy, their performance in the economy. And so women can be harassed in education, for example, at school, and this causes them to drop out of school, and this affects their economic opportunities. Or on their way to work, in public spaces, in transportation. So there was a study that was conducted a few years ago in Jordan that revealed that one of the primary reasons for women not to accept a job offer, so this was women that had this job in their hands, was the prospect of facing sexual harassment on the bus ride to work. Our world is becoming more and more digital, and this brings us closer, but it also brings women closer to their harassers, who have new ways and new tools to harass them, cyberstalking, cyber harassment. So the trends that we are observing in recent reforms are those that do not just focus on sexual harassment at the workplace, but in a more holistic approach, taking into account all of these different forms. And as I mentioned earlier, in the ACP countries, we counted 47 countries that have laws on sexual harassment in employment, but only 3, the DRC, Zambia, and the Central African Republic have laws that cover also these other forms. And so it would be important to tackle all these forms of gender-based violence to be able to really promote the full participation of women in the economy.
Thank you so much, our panel. So to wrap, I think one of the keys that we've had is gender audit, gender assessment, and I'm happy to let you know that the ICR facility has a resource, a training manual on how to conduct gender audits. It's on our website, so if you are interested in conducting a gender audit and you do not know where to start, the manual is on our website and you can access it. There's an example of how we also conducted the gender audit in Malawi, courtesy ECAM. So there's an example to follow, and you can always speak to any of us and we can offer more support. But before we end, we would like to take an advice that each of our panel will give to practitioners. So one or two advice that you give to practitioners in the field on how we tackle gender-based violence in the workplace. So I'll start with you, Princess.
Okay, keep the conversation going, keep the sensitization going. We keep a session monthly in my organization, as well as we have online training courses that persons can take. And it's actually mandatory that you must have one session done annually. Okay? Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd have to agree with that as well, because with the organisations we work with, it's the ongoing campaigns that they do, so the ongoing education that they do that shows the changes in attitudes. So, and we're part of that process, so we continue that education out and support how the campaigning can happen in the communities. But just, I guess, just on reflection on this panel, when you said we had to look at, you know, these other aspects of violence that impact women and street harassment, public transport. So we definitely see that in Papua New Guinea, to the extent that big companies transport their staff. You know, they transport their staff to and from, which MSMEs, SMEs can't do, obviously. So we are also trying to work around how, as private sector companies, we can create safe public transport. But we do need government buy-in, we do need resourcing, and for me, that's probably the uphill battle for us. So it was really good to hear some of the public sector speakers from some of the African countries saying how that they are proactive in this space, because I would like our government to be proactive in this space. So that's not a takeaway message. My takeaway message is perhaps I'll learn from you around how I can work better with government in terms of being a bit more proactive in these spaces. Yeah.
Yeah, just to add on what my colleagues have said, for employers, building stronger relationships with the team is key, and that's the talking and talking and talking. And then aligning the company goals and with gender-based violence message. And also finally, spare resources for gender-based violence initiatives. It is very key, very key. Thank you.
Yeah, I think maybe building on what people have said already, you know, create an environment of mutual respect within the organizations, so that there is an openness to receive the sensitization and to participate in the dialogue.
I'm probably going to repeat myself, but two points. One is for policymakers to use data, use research when drafting your laws, when drafting your policies, see where the gaps are, see where the good practices are. But in addition to that, I think what is needed is also training and awareness campaigns to tackle the root causes of gender-based violence. So those social norms that about, you know, the dominance of men and the submissiveness of women that makes gender-based violence the norm, or the stigma that prevents women from coming forward because of fear of retaliation or fear of not being believed. So this is just as important, just as an important component.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I don't know if there will be some questions from the audience before we close.
Hi, I'm Charmaine Brim. I'm from Jamaica. I wanted to get a sense from any of the panelists, in instances where women they remain in an abusive relationship because of their children. And from a protection standpoint, where they have to come to work, but they don't want to leave the child at home, does any of your organizations have any accommodation to allow for those children to probably be, you know, at the workplace until the mother is able to take them, you know, to school, etc. But how does that dynamic work out in any of the scenarios for you, for any of the panelists?
Thank you for the question. So in the policy that we work with in companies, we have a provision around safety planning. And so those companies who we work closely with, if a person is going through violence and they have to bring their children into the workplace, we work with them around safety planning within the workplace and safety planning to and from the workplace. And if they need safe accommodation, then it's safety in that accommodation with their children. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I think
there's some questions.
Okay, we take one more.
Thank you very much. My name is Mamiukia. I work with Afrobarometer. And so we have a publication on gender-based violence. And for some of the findings, I like to share them with you, but then ask questions from our panelists. So we asked our respondents to tell us whether they think gender-based violence should be a criminal matter or a private matter to be resolved at home. And we realized that our respondents across 39 African countries were split. So 50% said it should be a criminal matter, to go to the police and all that. But 48% said that it should be a private matter that should be resolved at home. I would like to find from our panelists, what could be some of the factors driving these responses? Why are people saying that it should be a private matter that should be resolved at home? And then when we looked at the demographics of the responses, we found that, well, naturally, more women said that it should be criminal versus men, which is understandable, right? But we found out that people with higher education and then people who were economically well off said that it should be criminal versus their counterparts. So the poorer citizens said, no, we want to resolve this at home. And then those who didn't have higher education said, no, we should bring this matter at home. What are some of the factors driving these differences? Why would a woman think that it's okay for gender-based violence to be solved at home versus taking it to the police?
I'll say briefly from my exposure in sessions that we have in Jamaica, it's the same reason why we have a difficulty in Jamaica for rapists to be convicted, because it's a cultural, social acceptance that, well, it's just him being the man, I must be the woman. It's a normal thing. And even when we have had workshops with cross-cutting age groups, multi-generational women, sadly, they're thinking, oh, it's just a little touch, it's just a little, and it's nothing big. If you cause him to lose his job or you cause him to lose his economic gain, then the family that he comes from is going to suffer. So it's okay, I'll take it, I'll accept it, because the sister over there, those children need to be sustained, and that family needs to be sustained.
Yes, I think that it's contextual. So I think every country is going to have their own answer to this. Certainly in Papua New Guinea, it's the same. There's an acceptance of violence, and so the norm of it is accepted in the family. But I can also talk to a few other areas. So we also have something called bride price, where it's an exchange of, it can be money or something significant, where there's ownership, where the man feels he owns the woman in that relationship, and she has to move to his area. So if you are in that circumstance, you're financially tied to that family, and so having a criminal aspect to that would not be beneficial for you, because that would cut off all of your financial means as well. So the complexities around that are huge. I'd also talk about religion, Christianity, and the norms that has that indoctrinated our society in terms of the dominance of man and a position in the household.
Yeah, I think also looking at the sort of the education level and so on, I think obviously all of these factors form part of that, but I think it also is relating to the power balance, the power dynamics. So if you're better educated, if you have a better job, if you're in a higher socioeconomic area, you often feel that you have more power. I mean, not always, but there is a part of that. So I think it's also really important to look at the power dynamics in society, the power dynamics in the home, and that will also give us a part of the answer.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think we can now close the panel. So let me first of all thank the five panelists that we have had here. They're inspired. Maybe we can take it in bilateral during the drinks. The question, I mean. Maybe we can take it after in bilateral if that is okay, because we are out of time and we need to close. So we take it in bilateral. So thank you very much. I think we have heard very inspiring experiences from the three regions, from Jamaica, from PNG, and from Malawi. I think we can go back home and bring these experiences, these things that we have learned, and try to implement back at home. We have, we can conclude that collecting data to inform policies is essential. We need to increase sensibilization of the different stakeholders. We need to raise awareness, and we need to better formulate policies with clear definitions of what is gender-based violence, put in place preventive measures to avoid gender-based violence, make responsible accountability of the perpetrators, measure and implement measure monitoring of the policies, and finally work together as a society. This is a collective responsibility to ensure that we promote gender equality and we eliminate gender-based violence. So thank you very much. Thank you very much to Marina, Yolanda, and Princess and Yvonne for all your contribution, and thank you to Irene for.
Thank you. Just to say that tomorrow there's a session on social norms. So we've heard it today. Tomorrow there's a session on social norms. So we hear more about that too tomorrow. Thank you, everyone. Yeah.
One, two. I love this group here. But I think we can all do better than them. All right, let's give them a round of applause. Wow. Powerful. That's what we call finishing power. Just what we need. Anita? Yes. It's been a good day.
One. Oh, I don't know about the ballroom, but the everyone that attended the sessions in the auditorium was so well behaved, always punctual, had a lot of questions. I think we are the A team of the summit today.
Can we tell her the truth?
Auditorium, where are you? Auditorium.
Team Auditorium, can you tell her the truth?
Auditorium, oh my goodness.
No.
No, I'm sorry. And every time I said you have a 2-minute break, they were back in 1 minute and 15 seconds.
Team Ballroom, can you tell her the truth?
What's the truth?
Actually, for us, we didn't even take the break. We sacrificed. We were so committed, like we didn't even want to go for any break.
Really?
Yeah.
I want to say something, but I'll only say tomorrow. Otherwise, I might get fired halfway through this wonderful opportunity. But ladies and gentlemen, how are you feeling? I know it's been a long day, and that's what that's the byproduct of so much work, so little time. It is what it is. We'll conquer as much as we can. But Eugene and I are here to officiate the wrap up. It's going to be a very small panel discussion. I know someone was already asking if wine is being served over dinner. Yes, it is, but only after 6 p.m. So I just need your attention for just a little longer, and we promise we'll get you out to dinner as soon as possible, Eugene.
Yeah, indeed. And I think for us, this moment is just to be able to pick up the key points, the key things that we're taking from this particular forum, and especially in terms of the action plans, the areas that we said we would wish to leave this conference with. It's just picking your ideas, picking your thoughts on how it is coming along, Anita.
Absolutely. And what we're going to do is, again, because we've got an audience online that we do have to respect, we're going to take everything onto the stage just to wrap up so that they can see what's happening. We've got 3 contributors who are each going to speak for 5 minutes. 5 African minutes. Never mind, 5 minutes. And we plead that you stick to 5 minutes kindly so we can graduate from here. And Eugene, you're going to do us the honors of moderating that conversation. But I will use the opportunity to invite onto the stage Mr. Junior Lodge, Assistant Secretary General, Organization, pardon me, of African, Caribbean, and Pacific States. Mr. Lodge, where are you? Is he here? Mr. Lodge, there you are. Did you change your blazer? Wow.
Can we appreciate him, ladies and gentlemen?
Superstar you are. All right. We will also have Miss Mantiha, or I think it's Mantla. You're going to have to correct me kindly. Sankoloba. She's a chairperson of the OACPS Business Forum and representative of the Botswana
Free
Exporters
sitting.
and Manufacturers Association, Botswana. Is that you, madam? Please help me with the pronunciation of your first name. Oh, yeah. Mankla.
Yes.
Can you do it?
Mankla.
Show off. All right, ladies and gentlemen, our last, definitely not the least, is Yasmin Galul, who's the technical lead for Development Finance Institutions, of course, ICR facility.
A round of applause, please, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Yeah, for a moment, I kind of felt whoever designed this program must have been a health expert. Because the way it's been designed, it actually fits in the span of our attention and even in the patience level that we can be able to have. And so at this point, I don't want to take much time. It's just for us to be able to just get our thoughts on this overall conference so far in terms of how we are looking at it in that particular situation. I'm going to start with you. Just give us your overall feel. It's coming down to day one, and I want to read your thoughts on what you're hearing on the ground. What are the key things that when you packed your bags and took that plane coming here, especially in terms of expectations and what you've had so far?
One word, awesome. Second word, inspiring. Third, I've been around OACPS, EU relations for, I think, more than 30 years. I think it's the first time ever I've heard a discussion on gender-based violence, and there was just a wealth of knowledge, expertise. It's a difficult conversation in many ways, in the sense that there is what I heard from the three representatives was inspiring, because I was unaware of what was happening on the ground, and I was unaware of the initiatives that are being made in countries that we represent to not only showcase what is happening, some of the safeguarding measures that were being mooted, but also some of the solutions. Yeah. So that I found not challenging, but most interesting, because it is addressing something very concrete, and which of course is also elementary to women's empowerment.
Wow, wonderful, wonderful. Mankla, what are you picking from this forum? You can pass the mic to her, please.
Thank you very much for pronouncing my name perfectly well. I think it's been a very exciting day, a very insightful one. I think, as Mr. Lodge has said, there's a lot being done on the ground, and it's quite exciting to learn that there is solutions out there. It's just a question of sharing information about where these solutions are, how can they be accessed, and where can they be accessed. So I think this is information that was reached today in terms of this is what we are doing as Nigeria. These are the interventions that are put in place, and it's a learning process for other countries to, benchmark and understand, okay, if we are going through this, Nigeria went through it, then this is how they went out of it. So I think it's been beautiful. Also, service providers, especially the financiers, it seems like there's so much being done on the ground.
Yeah.
And again, I hope as discussions go forward, we will have the real entrepreneurs as well saying, no, but you are providing us this, but we think this is what could work best for us.
Right, wonderful. Yasmin, what are you hearing on the ground on this particular forum so far?
So I'm in a different position, because I'm part of the team of the ICR facility. So I've been really looking forward to hearing from all of you, all the participants, for the last few weeks, or dare I say months. And I've been really looking forward to meeting some of the participants here who who I've been speaking to via video calls for 4 years, and now the time has come. And I have really been enjoying it. I've been learning a lot. I've been observing connections made between participants, and that is really, I mean, it makes me feel very glad to see the results of the networking possibilities that we're offering to all the beneficiaries of the ICR facility. So yes, and I have to say also, I am feeling a little bit of frustration because I see so many conversations starting and evolving, and then we have to pass to another topic. So I really hope that tomorrow there'll be the possibility to dig deeper into certain topics and to learn more about innovative solutions for all.
Right. And while you still have the microphone, just whisper to me, they're not hearing. What should they improve on in terms of their behavior, overall participation?
Sorry, I didn't get that. You're whispering too much. I mean,
all right, I'll pass. Let me come back to. So if Junior, if this forum was by any reason, or would you say that so far from what we've been able to experience here, the conversations that have come out of here, do you think we're ready to close this forum today? Tomorrow we just go for enjoying Kigali and enjoy Rwanda, or we still need more time in this particular room?
No, there are many dimensions. And in fact, I've only listened to the conversations in the ballroom, so I'm a little bit biased. So there are other things that I don't know. And I'm sure also there are other examples and experiences that we still need to grasp. And I think this is the leitmotif, the general thread of this conference, which is tackling very serious and important matters, but also under the rubric of showcasing solutions.
Yeah.
So that in itself is empowering, and it's empowering to me.
Right.
Because my starting point was I work in Brussels. We can say the midwives along with the European Union of programs of the ICR facility. And therefore being able to see what is happening concretely is indeed both inspiring and empowering. And therefore, the challenge is in terms of how to propagate. We're hearing these nuggets and they are all inspiring, but how can we build on them? How can we move forward?
Yasmin, just in closing, if you're to speak on behalf of the panelists here in terms of your expectations tomorrow, the final day, what are your expectations? Just very briefly. Oh, sorry, actually, yeah, I know, I'm sorry, yeah, go ahead. But you'll get a chance to say that as well.
Thank you very much. I think in terms of expectations, there has to be a way forward. We have had laments, we have had suggestions, we've had solutions, but what would be the way forward? What is the next thing that needs to be done that is timed, targeted, and intentional?
Yeah. All right, Yasmin, you have the last word.
Just to remind you that there is a way forward, and one of the way forward is technical assistance from the ICR facility. So it was mentioned this morning, but we are still accepting technical assistance requests until mid-July. So if you have felt inspired, if you have heard about ideas or experiences that you think you could replicate with a little bit of help, we're here for you to help you do that.
Right, wonderful. A round of applause, please, to the panel here. Thank you very much. We might take our seats. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for our panelists. And they will be back tomorrow with their overall reflections, and essentially they will be talking about ways forward, as Yasmin alluded to that, but maybe a little bit more highlighted, so to speak. All right, who is ready for an after party? Leo, not you. You're still on duty. But I think we've worked hard today and we deserve a little bit of a break. Just so you know, and I'll make that announcement when we go to dinner, the last bus will leave the premises at 9:35 p.m. The last bus will leave at 9:35. After 9:35, you will have to, unfortunately, find your way to the hotel. We're not serving too much alcohol, so you can find your way to the hotel. But we humbly request that we keep everything to a minimum, just so that we can be in control of ourselves. We've still got a lot of work to do tomorrow. Also, on each one of your tables, we have evaluation forms. So if we don't have them now, we'll have them tomorrow. But please, as Yasmin said, kindly, till July 15th, you can tap into the resource of technical assistance. So please don't wait till tomorrow to ask for it. If possible, ask for it from today. Tomorrow we'll have the evaluation forms on the table, and we ask that you fill them out so we can do a better job than what we have done here in Kigali so far.
Indeed. And of course, one more announcement. There's 2 optional trainings that are also up in the event that you would like to participate. And you can also do this through registering online. And of course, I think, Anita, without further ado, it's time for us to close the curtains for
Ladies
this.
and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of our session today. We shall continue tomorrow bright and early at 7:30 a.m. No, I'm just joking. We shall be here at 9:30 a.m. We can convene here. Oh, look at these ladies. Yeah, like you are joking, sister. I'll be sleeping. We are convening here tomorrow at 8:30. We've got coffee, and then we start our sessions at 9:30. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being such an awesome audience. We shall see you on the other side for dinner.
Enjoy yourselves. Have a good evening.